Thanks for downloading Ehnother Podcast from Ehnotherpodcast.com. Today's show can be found in many ways. iTunes, the Ehnotherpodcast.com webpage, and now can be found on Stitcher.com. You can now stream the latest show anywhere with the Stitcher app, on your computer, even on your boss's computer. Ehnother Podcast is now at your fingertips every day of the week and at your convenience. Enjoy today's episode of Warlock Wednesdays. Ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 48 of Warlock Wednesdays. This is Wednesday, November the 6th, and you're listening to the Warlock Hour. I am your host, Razor. I'm recording this the day before, so it's only Tuesday for me, but normally I record on Mondays, but I had other plans on Mondays. I'm also not feeling very well today, so I hope to get through this in one sitting, but I may have to take breaks, so if you notice some choppiness this week, I apologize. However, let's get started with the comic book releases. As we do every week, we are going to do the comic book releases. And from DC Comics this week, we have 5 interesting titles for you. First of all, Batman Superman number 5 is out this week. Batwing number 25, and I probably just pronounced that wrong. That's Batwing number 25. Forever Evil number 3 of the 7-part miniseries. Green Arrow number 25, and Superman Unchained number 4. From Marvel Comics this week, we have Amazing X-Men number 1, The Return of Nightcrawler to the X-Men franchise. This is a book that I'm going to have to call my local comic book store and have them put on hold so that I can check it out. Also from Marvel this week, Captain Marvel number 17 is out. Iron Man number 18. Mighty Avengers number 3, and a 4-part miniseries starts with Painkiller Jane, The Price of Freedom number 1 of a 4-part miniseries. From Dynamite Entertainment this week, we have Army of Darkness vs. Hackslash number 3 of a 6-part miniseries. Also the start of another miniseries, Legends of Red Sonja, number 1 of 5. Many artists, many writers included in this 5-part miniseries, including the incomparable Gail Simone, who I love on Batgirl, as well as the continuing Red Sonja series. Also from Dynamite Entertainment this week, Vampirella number 36. From IDW Publishing this week, Doctor Who Prisoners of Time number 10 of the 12-part miniseries, getting down to the end of that one. And also from IDW Publishing, and your final comic book release for this week of November the 6th, 2013, is Ghostbusters number 9. So those are your comic book releases for the week of November the 6th, 2013, and I hope you enjoyed. And as always, remember you can leave a comment or a response or an email or a tweet or a message on my Facebook page and let me know what comics you want to know when they're coming out, because I will put it on my list and I will make sure every time that I see that comic coming out or something related to it even, because sometimes there's miniseries that you might be interested in, I will mention it here on the podcast and let you know when your comic is coming out. Let's move on to the box office numbers from this past week, and they were not impressive as far as studios were concerned. However, I wouldn't mind a chunk of this change. The number 1 movie of the week was Ender's Game. Ender's Game brought in $27 million. However, it had a budget of $110 million, not including marketing costs, and that means that movie is not doing so well, especially when you consider what's coming out this coming weekend, which we'll get to in a little bit. But remember what I'm saying here, when this movie is only making $27 million in its opening weekend, it's not looking high hopes for a sequel. Number 2 this week was last week's number 1, Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa, bringing in another $20 million, bringing its 2-week total up to $61 million. Number 3 this week is one of the other new movies, Las Vegas, the kind of geriatric hangover, if you will, starring the likes of Robert De Niro, Morgan Freeman, Michael Douglas, and I can never remember the other guy's name. I think it's Kevin Kline. that brought in a $16.3 million take for its opening week, and in fourth place, a third new movie this week, Freebirds, brought in $15.8 million. The number 5 movie this week, dropping down from number 2, bringing in another $12.8 million, is the movie Gravity, which is now up to $218 million, almost $219 million worldwide, or North America, after 5 weeks, over doubling its budget. So maybe Gravity 2 is in the works. Who knows? I still haven't seen the movie. Still have no indications that I should see the movie, other than people saying that it's good. To me, it looks boring. And spoiler alert: I bet you I can predict everything that happens in the movie. They get lost in space. They float around for a while. They find things. George Clooney dies, and Sandra Bullock makes it back to Earth. I have not seen the movie, and I guarantee you that's what happens. Captain Phillips is in the 6th spot with $8.4 million. Then we have a little bit of drop off from 6th to 7th at 12 Years a Slave, bringing in $4.7 million, although for that movie it is an increase. This movie is only playing on 410 screens, averaging $11,600 per screen. That is pretty impressive for a 3-week total of $8.9 million. Number 8 this week is the children's film Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, which brought in another $4.1 million. The Counselor comes in at number 9 with $3.3 million, and right behind it in the final 10th spot, or at least the top 10 that I'm including, is Carrie, bringing in $3.2. Now let's look at some of the honorable mentions I made last week. About Time, which was a limited release. I said it was a wide release. Unfortunately, it is this week that About Time will get a wide release. About Time is only on 175 screens and brought in a 1.076, so $1,076,000 as its opening weekend take. Another one of my honorable mentions last week was Dallas Buyers Club, which is only on 9 screens currently, averaging $28,900 per screen, brought in $260,000. And my final honorable mention of the week was Diana, which is only on 38 screens, brought in $67,000 for this opening week. Now, a movie I mentioned a few weeks ago, Kill Your Darlings, still very limited release. It's only on 19 screens, brought in another $67,000, bringing its 3-week total on very limited screens to $219,000. I'm hoping that movie will get a wide release because I really want to see it. Back to Ender's Game for just a slight moment. As I said, it only brought in $27 million, so just not even maybe a third of it, or a fifth of its budget. The movie cost $110 million to make, and studios are going to be very reluctant to greenlight a sequel. Now, this is based on a series of books, so there are books already written. The quote from that I found was this: Ender's Game had a credible $28 million. Well, we know it's 27. This was written before the finals were in. This was when the estimates were in. A credible $27 million opening, we'll say, but not a plausible start of a new franchise for Summit Entertainment. Oh, and Oddlot Entertainment. When you consider that it's a relatively lackluster start, especially since the IMAX numbers were higher than predicted, not even the huge screens or the 3D up pricing were enough to make much of a difference. Analysts are saying that this movie is not a big draw. The film did not draw well from young adults, which is where the book's popularity is. It actually had only about 54% of the audience was over the age of 25, whereas their key demographic was probably the younger age. Now, Harrison Ford probably brought in the older crowd, which is fine. The weekend for it overseas. Hang on a second, I better reread this. So this movie is not doing well either overseas or here. I'm just gonna take a look at the world wide grosses for the movie, just so we can get a number. Yeah, it only brought in 9.1 in like foreign markets, which is anywhere outside of North America, so bringing its total worldwide only to $38 million, which again is well short of where they want to be. While that is an impressive number, it's just not enough when you consider the budget's $110 million, and you add into the fact that this coming week, starting Thursday night in some locations, Friday for a full opening, is the much anticipated sequel to a very popular franchise. Thor: The Dark World will open up this week and is one of your opening movies for the week. In fact, the only other movie opening this week is the wide release of About Time. Thor: The Dark World pretty much has this weekend locked up as a number one pick. The only question is, how much money will it make? My prediction is going to be about $110 million, which would be enough to pay for Ender's Game. I know it's a bold prediction, but I think this movie can do that and possibly even better. However, time will tell, and we'll find out next week. I do have an honorable mention this week, and that's The Book Thief has a limited release coming up for this week. The Book Thief centers on a girl who is in war times, in I believe World War II, given a book to read, and this book is passed on sort of through different means, and it looks very interesting. It did well at a lot of the festivals, so that's why I'm honorable mentioning it here. So let's move on to some other movie news, and we have more news on the Marvel project that Ben Kingsley is going to be in, the Secret Marvel project. It has been confirmed it will be a one-shot of what's going on. The Sir Ben Kingsley was talking to the Belfast Telegraph and had the following to say. It's a secret Marvel project. I'm not allowed to say any more. You're going to have to wait and see. He then goes on to say, I was with many members of the crew that were involved in Iron Man 3. It was lovely to see them again. It was great to be with this wonderful family. As I said this before, he has said that about this project before. There's nothing lazy or gratuitous about their work. They are at the top of their game, and they're great company to keep. Now, there is word coming out that, yes, we already confirmed that it is a one-shot short film, which I'm assuming will probably wind up on the Thor DVD next year, early next year, probably around April-ish. I would say that movie's going to come out just before Captain America's release. I guarantee you we will see Thor: The Dark World on DVD and Blu-ray, and this is where the Marvel one-shot will take place. Apparently, Marvel knows deep down what they did with the Mandarin character in Iron Man 3 was wrong. As one person is quoted as saying, it was quote-unquote bum juice. Now, that's just disgusting to think about in all anyways. Any way you can think about it, that's just disgusting. So, however, sources at Marvel have said that Marvel wants to make it up to the fans with this one shot, and the quote-unquote real Mandarin is furious with Aldrich Killian and Ben Kingsley's character Trevor Slattery for the mockery they made of the real Mandarin's identity and legacy. The real Mandarin wants to set the record straight. And then the person writing this article said, yes, the real Mandarin. Sources say that the Marvel has decided that basically they know they screwed up in the way they presented the Mandarin. Now, I enjoyed the way it was kind of done. Yes, I was disappointed that Ben Kingsley wasn't the Mandarin and he was kind of a scapegoat. I still say it could be Ben Kingsley. However, the way this is worded, it doesn't look like it. I still say Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin could have been playing off the whole thing and acting as Trevor Slattery as opposed to the Mandarin, so he wasn't, charged for the real crimes. Now, in the movie, Aldrich Killian claims that he's the Mandarin, and he's the reason behind all of these things that have been happening to Tony Stark since the first Iron Man movie, that he was kind of the mastermind. Well, in this one shot, apparently what we're going to see is the actual Mandarin, and whether it's Sir Ben Kingsley or whether it's another actor, this is going to be really interesting to see. And I've loved these one-shot films. They've been very good. Item 47 was amazing. The most recent one, I can't think of the name of it, but it was on the Iron Man 3 DVD about Agent Carter, and that was really good. So, I mean, these one-shot short films are very awesome. Marvel does a really great job with them, and I'm looking forward to it. As I said, it'll probably wind up on the Thor DVD. Speaking about Marvel, I have a article here from a French magazine, so I have translated it a little bit, and it's kind of my rough translation. It's talking to Kevin Feige, and he's addressing about Marvel Studios' Avengers 2, the Hulk, and the Guardians of the Galaxy. It says, as a big fan of Marvel who knows just about everything there was to know about the subject, how are things when you confront your vision with that of another big fan like Joss Whedon? What will happen when you disagree? Kevin's response was, fortunately with Joss we're on the same wavelength most of the time, and that's what made Avengers and all that leads to Age of Ultron also fun to do. But after that, it's the nature of making movies, a collaborative process where we do not always agree, and people who are struggling the most are my executive producers, but it gives the best films in the end, in my opinion. It's healthy. He also was asked, you said in the past that Tony Stark could have a future James Bond type scenario with new actors to play the character. His only response to that was maybe. Other questions that he was asked was that was important was, in 20 years, are you still in this? If in 20 years you are still in this position, imagine a reboot, or do you prefer to keep the continuity as in the comics? He goes, I'm more interested in the fact to keep continuity. It is in the sense that I was talking about Tony Stark is like James Bond or Batman, and maybe sometimes there will be an equivalent to Casino Royale or Batman Begins, but there's so many great stories in comics. Why do it again and again, the origins of the character? Now this is something that I gravitas towards to big time, because one of the problems people keep saying about the Batman movies is we keep getting an origin story. Marvel has basically decided that they're not going to do origin stories. Now, people are going to say, well, what about Spider-Man? Well, Spider-Man is not Marvel. Yes, the character is from Marvel, but the studio that owns it is Sony. That was Sony's decision. Same with Fox with the X-Men movies. They rebooted the X-Men movies by doing the First Class movie. Those were decisions by studios that are not Marvel. Marvel Studios started with Iron Man. That was the first movie that was fully done by Marvel Studios. Everything after that, other than Spider-Man, X-Men movies, Fantastic Four, and a possible Deadpool movie, is all not belonging to Marvel Studios. I like this interpretation. If, in fact, they stick to their guns and don't reboot it, I would be so happy. Because, as he said, there are so many stories to tell. Yes, when an actor changes, people are going to want to possibly see an origin story. But why? We've already seen it. Just make them go back and watch it. Make them go back and buy the original DVDs or Blu-rays or what have you, and figure out what's going on from there. Another question was asked, what do you think of the method of Warner Brothers and DC Comics on the implementation of their shared universe? Is this such a good idea to bring a new Batman in Man of Steel 2? And here's what he said. Batman and Superman met a few times in the comics. Marvel and all of us, we started as mere fans of films and comics. The idea of seeing a movie with Batman and Superman excites us, and most importantly, that's all that can be created through our own successes is very flattering. So basically he's saying, it's definitely a go. Now, I reported some of these questions before because he's been asked these questions quite a bit. So I'm going to end it with this one here, and it was kind of important. The Thor the Dark World, they were asked about Thor the Dark World. He made a mention that there will be an episode of the Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that will tie into the movie. So this is definitely something that's very interesting to me. I love that they're still trying to do that, and that there's still work to be done on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that people keep complaining about. But for me, I have enjoyed the show so much that how can anyone not want to continue to watch it is mind-boggling to me. It seems that people are expecting a superhero show. First of all, this is not a superhero show. This is basically a procedural. It's a cop show, but it's set in the Marvel universe. Now, if you don't like cop shows, maybe that's part of your problem. Maybe you just don't like cop shows and you're expecting a superhero every week. But the thing is, it's not a superhero show. It's a cop show, really. It's a secret agent show, and it's there's just so much to it that I am disappointed that some people keep saying how bad this show is. Now, the numbers tell a different story. The numbers say that this is succeeding quite well. Now, yes, it's gone down from the premiere, but every show goes down from the premiere. There are shows that have great premieres and great finales, and but every show in between, not as much. It's not as great as the first show and the last show. Now, some shows, when they're in the final season, definitely can what's the word I'm looking for? They can sustain high numbers because people know that it's in the final season, so they kind of want to take it all in and kind of like see the culmination of the entire show. Now, as I was saying, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on the November 19th episode will have a tie-in to Thor: The Dark World. Now, I didn't say the date. I was just looking up the date because I wanted to make sure I got it right. So during the interview, he hinted at it, but here's the article that I found, and it says, taking advantage of the inherent synergy between the ABC series Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Marvel Studios feature films, the November 19th episode of the TV show is set to pick up on the events of Thor: The Dark World, which is in theaters November 8th. The official synopsis for that upcoming episode is titled The Well, and it reads, in the aftermath of the events chronicled in the feature film Marvel's Thor: The Dark World, Coulson and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pick up the pieces, one of which threatens to destroy a member of the team. So, I'm assuming that whatever happens in the movie, things are going to be left behind, and one of these things that are left behind is one of these volatile items that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been sent out to kind of classify and determine whether it will be needed for good, for evil, whether it needs to be stored away. Now, here's another interesting tidbit about this episode. This particular episode is directed by one of my favorite Star Trek Next Generation stars turned director. Not LeVar Burton, who is my favorite, but my second favorite, Mr. Jonathan Frakes. Jonathan Frakes is best known as Commander Riker on Star Trek The Next Generation. He's directed episodes of Charmed, Dollhouse, Burn Notice, Roswell. He even directed a movie called Clock Stoppers. I think it was that. He is a very interesting director to me. He did better on the TV than he did the movie, but I'm definitely looking forward to it for so many reasons, and this is definitely awesome. The show has done so much, and people who are bashing on the show, you know what? Fine. Don't watch it. You know what? That's your choice. There's other channels. There's other shows on. Maybe you could watch The Voice. Maybe you could watch, I don't know what's on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock, but maybe NCIS. Maybe that's your thing. If you don't like a show, don't watch it. That's why I don't watch Glee. I fucking hate that show. That show is horrible. I don't watch it. It's that simple. Stop watching the show if you don't like it. Because you know what? There are millions, literally millions of people watching this show already. We don't need people there to rip it apart every single week. Because you know what? That's just not what the show is for. If you want a superhero show, go watch Arrow on Wednesdays. That's a decent show. It's a really good show. But S.H.I.E.L.D. is not a superhero show. It is a police procedural, basically. Only it's involving government agents instead of actual policemen. Or police persons, I guess. Police officers. There we go. So it's just, you know what? If you don't like the show, then don't watch it. It's that simple. You can change the channel. You can not watch it. You can find something else to do. In this day and age of technology, do whatever you want if you don't like the show. Moving on from there, more Marvel-related news. Unfortunately, this is dealing with Fox, and everybody keeps wondering, will we see a Deadpool movie? According to Ryan Reynolds and Tim Miller, the movie is always moving closer to being greenlit. Previously, I had reported here that Ryan Reynolds, in an interview that I linked and have had the video for on a previous episode, says in its current iteration, the movie's actually very small. There's minimal impact to the studio, which is the way we're kind of presenting it to them. We're saying, look, the budget is minimal, therefore we can do it this way. Do it this way and the way it should be done, which unfortunately needs a rated R, or it needs those elements. Now, Tim has also gone on to say, Tim Miller, who's the director, has gone on to say that we are waiting for the green light. Every time we try to do this, we change things here and there. But look, this is a Deadpool movie through and through. Deadpool is aware that he's in a movie. He's aware that the universes exist. He's going to be aware that Wolverine film is out there. He's going to be aware and break the fourth wall like he does in the comic books. This is a true Deadpool movie, not the fiasco that we saw in X-Men Origins. Now, people are saying, well, Ryan Reynolds did a horrible job as the Green Lantern. And you know what? He didn't do a horrible job. He had a horrible script and a horrible surrounding environment. He didn't do a great job either. However, if you watch X-Men Origins and you strip away the horrible plot points that were in the movie, and you look at his portrayal of Wade Wilson, just his portrayal of Wade Wilson, he nailed it. He was amazing as Wade Wilson. He had the sharp wit. And if you've watched a number of Ryan Reynolds movies that, like I have watched, especially like the Blade Trinity movie where he played Hannibal King, I think it was, he is very quick-witted, and he can be like that, and that's exactly what you need for Deadpool. Now, people are going to say, well, when Deadpool was on the screen, it would suck. Yeah, because, one, Ryan Reynolds didn't play Deadpool. That was not Ryan Reynolds playing Deadpool at that point. When he was Deadpool and the burned and scarred and everything all messed up, that was not Ryan Reynolds. That was somebody else. And that was part of the problem. Also, they screwed up entirely what Deadpool should look like. And, I mean, yes, we're all expecting the red and black suit, but, I mean, they still kind of had the scarred look, which is what he looks like underneath. That aside, I mean, they pretty much screwed up everything that was Deadpool after they turned Wade Wilson into this creature, if you want to call it. So, I hope that it does get greenlit, and I'm looking forward to that. Now, moving on and a little bit away from Marvel news for a change and for a little bit, Highlander is getting a reboot. As we all know, this movie franchise had some ups and downs. The first movie was great. The second movie blew. The third movie was pretty darn good. The fourth movie blew. So it's had its ups and downs. They are rebooting it, and they have found a director. Excuse me. As I said, I'm not feeling good, so I'm a little tired. Now, this director is a new director. His name is Cedric Nicholas-Troyan, and he will be directing his first feature film with this movie. This is what he had to say when he got word that he actually got the gig. I have been working on my pitch for this since the summer, and when I got there, I met the original producer, and I just started geeking out, and he loved it. The first movie came out when I was a teenager in France, and it was one of my favorite films of those years. I loved the series also. They shot a lot of it in France on the Seine River. My first reaction, like everybody else, was, really? Do we need a remake? Then I read the script, and I thought about how Russell Mulcahy was the super visual video director who brought the pulse of the 80s to the film so well. I started thinking about taking those great characters and matching them with a modern, visceral take, and then I was in love with the idea and I just went for it. So the script for the remake is said to stick closely to the original film. The reboot of the franchise the prevailing philosophy of this reboot is, let's start over with the same core elements, but let's not lose our way this time. I don't know what that means, but I'm hoping that means that they want to take what was great and keep it, but then kind of freshen up a bit. Now here's my biggest problem. Christopher Lambert, who played the lead character of Connor McLeod, was amazing. Sean Connery was a great kind of companion with that. They had a fresh new actor and a kind of veteran actor. How do you do that now? I don't know. Obviously, the casting process is going to be difficult because neither of those guys are replaceable. You just hope you can do your best. Now, if I were to pick at this point in time, I don't know who would be the quote-unquote fresh face. However, for the veteran presence of the character of Ramirez, the only guy that comes to mind at this time is Liam Neeson. That's just all I'm saying about that. Alright, moving on. Anybody watch the movie Olympus Has Fallen? I know I did. It was very good. In fact, it was so good that there was two movies basically doing the same story. Olympus Has Fallen, and then later on, White House Down. Olympus Has Fallen, however, in my opinion, was the much better movie. I thought it was very well done, with a great cast in Gerard Butler, Aaron Eckhart, and Morgan Freeman. It made more than $160 million at the worldwide box office, which isn't impressive, but it's just very good for a low-budget film. Now, the original film was obviously at the White House. They are now talking about making a sequel called London Has Fallen, and it would still have the return of Gerard Butler, Aaron Eckhart, and Morgan Freeman, which I'm guessing the president, which was played by Aaron Eckhart, would be in London with his bodyguard slash Secret Service agent, Gerard Butler. I think his name was Banning of some sort, and I think Morgan played the Speaker of the House. So I don't know why he'd be there, but perhaps they're going to meet the British Prime Minister, or something's going on there, and obviously terrorist strike. Now, I'm betting that there will be help in this, because it's set in London. The Secret Service in London is usually known as MI6. As we know, that's where, James Bond comes from. So, will we see help along the lines of a male character, or has been hinted at a possible female pairing, which would be, obviously add some estrogen into this movie. Not that it's needed. I mean, the movie did very well without a lot of estrogen in the first one. I just think that that's quite a possibility, and I'm interested in seeing it. Olympus Has Fallen was great, so let's see how London Has Fallen will do. Alright, for you video game aficionados who like seeing their games turn into movies, although there's not many of you out there, because mostly Hollywood screws this up. Whenever they make a video game, or a movie out of a video game, they tend to mess things up, and so we are very disappointed. Well, I have here, and I will link it in the description below, a trailer, an article and a trailer for the movie based on the video game for Heavenly Sword. Heavenly Sword features a female character with long flowing red hair and these giant ass huge blades, swords that she just kicks serious ass. It's called Heavenly Sword, as I said, and the trailer for the movie is fantastic. It's all done in CG animation. It is not a live action film. It is CG animated, so it's going to look a lot like the cutscenes from the video game. The movie has the voice talents of Anna Torv as Nariko, who is the female heroine. Alfred Molina will be playing King Bohan, and Thomas Jane will be playing Loki. Now, this Loki is different from the Marvel Universe Loki. This is more focused on Loki mischief maker type thing. If you've played the video game, you know what you're in for. This is a dramatic tale of revenge, and we'll definitely see our fiery-haired heroine embark on a quest for vengeance against the invading King Bohan and his army. This film, CG animation, may be direct-to-video. I hope it's not. I would love to see this in theaters, but I don't care, because this is huge, and Thomas Jane, Anna Torv, and Alfred Molina are voice actors that are great presence on screen when they act. I can't wait to see how they do this. The trailer looks fantastic. I'm gushing a little bit about it, but definitely going to link it in the description below, and you can check it out for yourself because I'm very interested in it. Moving on. Ever since Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe has kind of strayed away from those types of roles. Not that there's a lot of roles where you're playing a boy wizard. However, being on the shorter side of things, I mean, he's not 6 foot whatever. He's not your typical great looking movie star that you see in like a Brad Pitt or and he's not an action star like you would see in Jason Statham. He is a wonderful actor who had a role that was iconic. I mean, absolutely iconic. There's like nothing that I could describe other than being iconic. Now, as I said, he's a little on the shorter side. He's only 5'5", so that puts some roles in limitation, unfortunately. However, I've seen some of his other movies, and his talent. I still want to see Kill Your Darlings, which is another movie that he's did. Well, apparently now he's going to be in a biopic. It's going to be based on former track and field athlete Sebastian Coe. He is a British politician, and the movie is called Gold. Now, here's the quick little tidbits that I have about this movie, because I didn't know anything about it. Sebastian Coe is an obsessive and nurtured. He is a quiet loner driven to the limit of endeavor by his ambitious father. Steve Olivet, effortless and natural, is a confident joker outsider fighting to prove himself in an elitist world. Both are fueled by rivalry, but burdened by the weight of expectation and fear of failure. Lovers, family loyalties, and the human spirit are tested to a breaking point in a relentless race for glory. Inspired by a crescendo of real-life events, a movie about winning, losing, and the pursuit of immortality. Filming is suspected to start in early 2014. It will also star Joanna Anderson, Vicky Licorice, and Kevin Loder. So, I'm looking forward to this. Just because I want to see Daniel Radcliffe do something different. And I always want to see actors do something different than what they're kind of pigeonholed for. Okay, Matthew Vaughn, the director of the movie Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class, is making his third foray into a comic book movie. He will be doing the movie The Secret Service, based on the book by Matt Millar and Dave Gibbons. The cast of the film, which has been described as James Bond meets My Fair Lady, contains a trio of veteran thespians. So far, they have Samuel L. Jackson, Colin Firth, and Michael Caine. Well, the director is trying to find fresh faces for the pivotal roles. Taron Egerton and Sophie Cookson play two of the leads, and it is now being reported that Sofia Boutella has been cast as the female antagonist. She is a French dancer and model, so this will be her first acting role. So they are really looking for fresh faces in this adaptation of a graphic novel. This movie, The Secret Service, is set for a November 14th, 2014 release. Any of you horror fans out there? I definitely am. Well, there was a little horror movie that was called Trick or Treat. And when I say or, the actual or was actually apostrophe R, there was no OR. It was a cult classic. It was instantly, fantastically reviewed by fans of horror. It definitely has a huge cult following. The first film centered on a character named Sam, he's sort of a Halloween mascot that punished anyone who dared speak ill of the holiday. Well, we are going to continue the adventures of Sam because it has been announced that Trick or Treat 2 will be made, and we will find out what happened with Sam and his continued adventures in a sequel. Speaking of sequels being made, there is a reboot planned. What a surprise! In Hollywood, we're getting another reboot. In fact, this reboot is kind of close in the fact that the last movie of the franchise was direct-to-DVD release back in 2008, which is just a mere 5 years ago. This reboot is Sleepaway Camp. This is a slasher pick which had two direct sequels, Sleepaway Camp 2 and Sleepaway Camp 3, and then two films that were direct to DVD. There was Sleepaway Camp 4 that came out in 1992, and it was direct to DVD, and then years later, in 2008, we had Return to Sleepaway Camp. Well, Jeff Katz has plans to reboot this, and we'll have to see what happens there. Another reboot that's being planned is Stephen King's Pet Sematary. Now, I don't know why this needs a reboot. It was originally released in 1983 with a sequel that came out in 1989, which was horrible. It came out in 1992. The first movie came out in 1989. The book was released in 1983. That's what it was. It centered on a northeastern pet cemetery that was built on a Native American burial ground. And basically the pets came back. When you buried your pet there, it came back to life. But there was something evil about it. The Pet Sematary book was one of my favorite Stephen King novels. I love all of his earlier work. Anything before Dolores Claiborne, I enjoyed. Everything after Dolores Claiborne and after, not so much. But Pet Sematary was definitely one of my favorite Stephen King novels. The movie was fairly well done. There was obviously discrepancies, as there always are. So maybe if this new person, who is Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, not sure of the last name. It seems that if he can do a movie where he sticks closer to the book, perhaps that's possible, and perhaps that's something that will be interesting. Now, I think this is being announced now because with the success of Carrie, which is a remake of another Stephen King novel, it kind of makes sense. And this obviously was announced last week, which, of course, was the week of Halloween. Moving on. In Thor the Dark World, there's an actress in there playing Lady Sif. Her name is Jamie Alexander. Well, according to sources, and according to Stan Lee's Kamikaze Expo in Los Angeles, it seems that Jamie Alexander is in talks to play in Man of Steel 2. Jamie Alexander pretty much confirmed she was one of the final 4 finalists. That's kind of redundant. Anyways, she was one of the final 4 for the unspecified role that was talked about on this podcast probably about 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, where it was said that in Man of Steel 2 they were looking for an actress who was in their late 20s, who was tall, possesses physical fitness, like an overall physicality that they could, kind of be doing things. And it was rumored that it was going to be a love interest to Bruce Wayne. Well, it seems Jamie Alexander is definitely somebody who fits the bill and is in the final running of that role. Now, I know some people are like saying, well, she's playing Lady Sif in a Marvel movie. Why would Warner Brothers want her? Mostly because of the fact that it's hard to find a tall, late 20s, physically fit woman who can play the role. Now, a lot of people speculated that it's going to be Wonder Woman. I think you are completely wrong, but don't get me wrong. Jamie Alexander would definitely make a pretty cool Wonder Woman. She's definitely got that presence about her that would lend itself to being Wonder Woman. She's physically fit. She's done other action movies. She's 5'9", which, I mean, yes, it's not like over 6 feet, but I mean, as a female, that is pretty tall in the movie industry, and you can always kind of camera trick it to make her look a little bit taller to play an Amazonian. However, if she gets cast in this role, forget the Wonder Woman bag altogether. I do not believe, I beyond a shadow of a doubt, I am going to say the role that is being cast for Man of Steel 2 is not Wonder Woman, and rather a definite love interest for Bruce Wayne, who's being portrayed by Ben Affleck. Alright, moving on. Star Trek 3 might have its director. As we know, J.J. Abrams has left the Star Trek franchise to join the Star Wars franchise, where he will be directing the upcoming Star Wars Episode 7. Star Trek Into Darkness was the last movie that J.J. Abrams directed, and now a third one is on its way and being worked on, and it looks like Attack the Block director Joe Cornish may be up for that directing role. He is a frequent collaborator of Edgar Wright, who obviously is a huge geek and nerd, and as we know, he is going to be directing the upcoming Ant-Man movie. Well, Attack the Block definitely had a huge cult following and enjoyed by many. So Joe Cornish could be the new director of Star Trek 3. Now, Star Trek 3 is set to start filming sometime in 2014. The script writers are returning, Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, and hopefully we'll find out some confirmation on this, whether Joe Cornish is the actual director or not. I'm going to save till the end of this segment. Alright. Actors who play multiple roles, or play the same character in multiple movies, are a very rare find. We know that when you make sequels, you try to bring back the actors from the original. Excuse me. However, when you look at it, there's not a lot of actors that play the same role more and more and more and more times. One of those actors is Hugh Jackman, who has played the character Logan / the Wolverine in 7 different films, with the 7th one going to be next year's X-Men Days of Future Past. However, it is now being reported by 20th Century Fox that negotiations have begun with director James Mangold and Hugh Jackman to reprise both their roles in making another solo X-Men movie for the Wolverine. James Mangold to direct, of course, and Hugh Jackman to play the character of Logan / the Wolverine. That's right, folks. It looks like we're going to be getting a 3rd Wolverine movie, and that would make Hugh Jackman's 8th appearance in a movie as the same character. This is like almost unprecedented. Granted, some of those roles have been cameo roles. It doesn't matter. He has been in 8 films, and he is the only member to be in every single X-Men movie from its inception. It's impressive to be in 8 films as the same character. Well, you think back and you look at Sean Connery, who's played James Bond, I believe 6 times. I believe also so did Roger Moore. Am I getting that right? It's very few and far between. There are actors who have played set characters, but I'm losing my train of thought here. Okay, I'm gonna look something up just so I can get this right. There have been actors who have played roles 7 times. Okay, Hugh Jackman, obviously, as I said, joined a group of people. And they are Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock in Star Trek, Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3, Star Trek 4, Star Trek 5, Star Trek 6, Star Trek the reboot, and Star Trek Into Darkness. That's 7 films for him. Then there was Johnny Weissmuller, who played Tarzan all throughout the 30s and 40s in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 films. That's huge. Of course, we have Daniel Radcliffe, who's who Hugh Jackman's going to tie, as he played Harry Potter in 8 films, and that includes all the other Harry Potters, but Harry Potter was the lead. Desmond Llewellyn played in 17 films as Q, the designer of all the gadgets for James Bond, and he was in 17 of these films, all the way up to, from 1963 from Russia with Love, all the way up to The World Is Not Enough in 1999. Now, he has since passed away, and may he rest in peace. Christopher Lee has played Dracula in 10 films from 1958 to 1973. Tyler Perry, unfortunately, has played Medea, and he is also on up to 8 times. Actually, I believe he will be at 9, so he's going to get out of that one. Then there is this man. Now, this man, unfortunately, nobody's going to touch. He has played the character Wong Fei Hung, his name is Quan Tak Hing, in 77 different films. Now, here's the thing. These are Chinese martial arts films. He played in them from 1949 to 1981. In 1956, there were 25 of these 77 films. That is huge. Now, his role wasn't always huge in these films, but he did play the same character in every single one. That is impressive. So just to kind of see how that is, Hugh Jackman will be returning for his 8th role in the modern age. Now, if you listen to most of those, other than Leonard Nimoy and Daniel Radcliffe, in the modern age, that is unheard of because of how much money these actors make. So that's very impressive. Another remake or possibly continuation of a series is in the works. The folks at Lionsgate are looking into and actively working on an 8th Saw film. Now, apparently, according to sources, the studio is not rushing this at all. They are waiting to find the project. They are waiting to find out how to relaunch the project and whether they should be doing a continuation or just restarting it. Now, this this franchise ran from 2004 to 2010, 7 films in that span. It was kind of a Halloween launch date, like they kind of launched in Halloween. They were huge successes because of the low budget, and they created very attractive profit margins for the studio, which was Lionsgate. Now, as I said, they're not rushing it. They want to figure out what is best. There's no casting news to report. There's no word whether they're talking to James Wan or Lee Whannell, who are the creators. All they are saying right now is that they are actively looking into this. So it begs the question, would you return to a theater, or what would it take for you to return to a theater to see a Saw movie? Would you want it to continue the original story? Would you want it to sort of reboot itself by creating a new antagonist with similar tastes as Jigsaw, and not necessarily referencing the previous films, at least not very much? Or are you done kaput, don't want to see another Saw movie? Where do you stand? Where do I stand? I think that if you're going to do it as a sort of reboot with a new antagonist who's sort of like Jigsaw, and kind of have some references to the originals, but not too much. Now I want to go on a tiny bit of a rant. In the movie that's coming out next month, Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug, Orlando Bloom is reprising his character from the Lord of the Rings franchise of Legolas. I have a serious problem with this. Legolas is not part of The Hobbit. It's bad enough that they're making this movie a trilogy when the book is shorter than all the Lord of the Rings books, and those are only 1 movie each. So that's not bad enough. Now I'm going to go see everyone because while it's still entertaining, it's still something I want to see, but I'm upset that they still made a trilogy. Now, to hear that they've got, well, and I knew this before, but with the movie being closer to coming out, I'm ranting about it now. Orlando Bloom reprising his character as Legolas is bullshit. It's poppycock. It's hogwash. It's just crap. He does not need to be in this movie. You know why he's in this movie? Because the man hasn't done anything in the past, I don't know. Let's see, when was the last big movie that he did? 2007? When he did Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End? Let me give you a list of what he's done since then, and you be the judge of if he's done anything significant. New York, I Love You. Never heard of it. Sympathy for Delicious. Never heard of it. Main Street. Never heard of it. The Good Doctor. Never heard of it. Three Musketeers, huge flop. And then he's got, of course, in post-production, The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, coming out this December, and The Hobbit, There and Back Again, coming out next December in 2014. He needs the money, people. He's broke. He's divorced. Probably has a huge, settlement with his wife, or ex-wife now. He needs the work. There's no other reason. Legolas should not be in this movie. I'm sorry. Find other work, Orlando Bloom. You used to be a decent actor. What the hell happened? Maybe you just don't want to act. At least that was the rumor when the 4th Pirates of the Caribbean movie was made. He didn't want to play it anymore. Didn't want to be typecast, or whatever excuse he used. Yet, this will be his 4th foray as Legolas, and we just mentioned how rare it is for people to play multiple roles, and then he will be doing his 5th foray as Legolas when the final Hobbit movie comes out in 2014. It's bullshit. He should not be in there, and I'm sorry. Peter Jackson is just screwing with us, and it's crap. Total crap. Alright, so that's it for movie news. Let's move on to a couple of bits of television news very quickly. AMC has announced that they are renewing The Walking Dead for a 5th season, so awesomeness there. That is great. 5th season of Walking Dead confirmed. Also, some sad news, or interesting, depressing news? I'm not sure. As we know, the CBS series How I Met Your Mother is in its final season, and now CBS is possibly thinking of doing a spin-off. The spin-off would be called How I Met Your Father, and it will be an all-new cast with a female lead telling her group of friends, or with her group of friends telling her kids on how they met their father. Be no connection to this whatsoever, other than the fact that it'll be called How I Met Your Father. I say thanks, but no thanks. I am enjoying the final season, although I think the whole wedding thing is it's going to be the whole season, for crying out loud. It's this show has played out. This show is done. I do not want to see a How I Met Your Father. What I want CBS to maybe do is, if they're going to do a spin-off, how about a Barney show? Barney has been the star of the show. Neil Patrick Harris is fucking awesome. He rocks. He needs a show. I don't know. At least Kobe Smulders has S.H.I.E.L.D. that she can turn to. So, we just need to keep Neil Patrick Harris on TV. That's what I'm saying. Ugh. Okay, so that is it for entertainment news. Let's take a little break, and I'll be back with sports. Hello out there, all you NFL fans. Do you like to pick the winners of each game every week? Well, guess what? So do I. Right now, you're listening to the Warlock Hour here on Warlock Wednesdays. We're about to go into sports, but before we do, I just want to tell you that every Thursday you can listen to Warlock Hour Presents NFL Pick'em. That's right, me and a few friends sit down and we pick the winners of each game every week. We have fun doing it, and you can listen along and maybe even pick against us. Listen to a few amateur analysts as we give our opinions on each game every week, and we pick the winners and compete against each other, just a friendly competition, and we have fun doing it. So if you'd like to tune in and listen to that, that's tomorrow, Thursdays, on Ehnotherpodcast.com. EHNOTHER podcast.com, a Canadian podcast network. Attention, Sudbury football fans! Do you want to win a trip to Super Bowl 48? I know I do. Let me tell you how you can do that. Joe McDonald Youth Football League is holding a raffle. They are selling tickets to win a trip for the Super Bowl in New York City. That's Super Bowl 48. You can win 2 tickets for you and a friend. You would also get $500 spending money, transportation to and from, that's your flight there and back, plus a hotel stay for 3 nights at a 4-star hotel. How do you get these wonderful tickets? Well, you buy a raffle ticket. And how do you buy a raffle ticket? Well, you can go to one of many locations. For those locations, you can go to joemcdonaldfootball.com, or you can just listen to my next little bit. They are Beef and Bird. You can get them there. Cubit Portable Storage. Dr. M. Staffen New Sudbury Chiropractic. Eddie's Restaurant and Sports Bar. Kicks Hot New Country 91.7 FM. Lockerbie Confectionery. The Lounge 390 at the Quality Inn. New North Fuels. New Sudbury Shopping Mall at the Lottery Center, Nickel Belt Camping, Pro-Am Sportswear, and at the Rainbow Mall at the Lottery Center. And if this is not good enough for you, well, you can place your order by phone. That phone number to call for those raffle tickets, 705-524-2970. How much do these tickets cost, you ask? Well, the Joe McDonald Youth Football League is entering its 20th season. So why not make the tickets $20? And they did! Tickets, $20. You can get them now. Win your trip. Go to Super Bowl 48. Who knows who's playing? Looks like Denver Broncos maybe, but hey, you get to be there if they are. So win your trip to New York City and Super Bowl 48 by visiting joemcdonaldfootball.com and picking up your raffle tickets, because it goes for a great cause, and hey, you might win a trip to New York City. And welcome back to the second half, the sports segment of the show. I'm going to start somewhere in junior hockey. Now, I'm of two minds in this, sort of like on the fence. In Victoria, which is where the Vancouver Western Hockey League Victoria Royals play, they have a mascot named Marty the Marmot. Now, during the second intermission of a hockey game that was played on, I'm going to say, I think it was Saturday night. Yes, Saturday, November 2nd. During the second intermission, they had a contest, a competition of musical chairs, where everybody's played musical chairs, right? I'm pretty sure, where basically, the music plays and you go around and start going around some chairs. You try to sit down. There's usually one less chair for amount of people. So there's 5 people. There's 4 chairs. 4 people, 3 chairs. The one who doesn't get a chair is eliminated. Now, as we all know from our youth, that can get a little pushing and shoving. But in a competition, you expect things to be fair. During this competition, when it was down to 3 people and 2 chairs, Marty the Marmot decided he was going to help one of the contestants win, and when one of the contestants went to sit in the chair, the mascot pushed the chair away and slid it over to a female contestant. Now, I'm guessing Marty the Marmot is played by a male, and he wanted the female to win the competition, and they were probably going to do everything to have the female win the competition. First of all, this is bullshit and wrong. You should never fix a competition, whether it's in good fun or not. This does not, and especially in a junior hockey game, there's probably a lot of kids there that are basically saying it's okay to cheat. Cheating is wrong in all sorts and all forms. Now, what the gentleman who didn't get the chair did was also wrong. The gentleman in question took Marty the Marmot and body slammed him basically on the ice. Now, the person who plays Marty is definitely injured and had to be moved to hospital. Probably hurt his back a little bit. Maybe his head hit the ice. He was in the mascot suit, so I don't know how injured he is. However, when I read this article that said the Victoria police were involved to lay charges against the assailant, are you fucking kidding me? Seriously? First, this is condoning cheating on both parts. I'm not saying what the guy did was right, but should he be charged for it? No. The team should also look at themselves. They cheated. They were helping, this mascot guy was helping the woman to win. Like, this is supposed to be a fair competition, right? At least that's what you should be portraying to the fans that are watching. Otherwise, this guy who dumped the Marmot could sue you for improper practices at a competition. This is illegal. If there should be any charging going on, it should be the Victoria Royals, or whatever their team name is, that should be charged. Now, I'm not condoning violence against mascots, or anyone for that matter. What the guy did was wrong. But also what the Marmot did was wrong. 2 wrongs don't make a right, yes. But both people should be in trouble, not just the guy who got attacked. And that's what I'm going to say about that. I will link the little video. It's kind of choppy. Unfortunately, it's not the greatest video, but it kind of gives you an indication of what happened. The mascot pushing the chair away from the guy who should have had it to the woman. The guy attacking the mascot. But it gives you an indication. Total bullshit, in my opinion, on both sides. Let's move on to the professional leagues and to the NHL. And the NHL 3 stars of the week, as we do every week. This week's 3 stars for the past week, obviously ending November 3rd, which was the Sunday. First star, Jason Pominville of the Minnesota Wild. He tied for the league lead in goals with 4, and he also had 2 assists for 6 points in his 3 games this week. They lost to Chicago 5-1. They won in Montreal 4-3, and then 4-0 over the New Jersey Devils. The second star of the week is goaltender for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Marc-Andre Fleury. He posted a 3-0 record with a 1.67 goals against average, defeating the Carolina Hurricanes, the Boston Bruins, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. And your third star of the week is Jason Chimera of the Washington Capitals, who had 2 goals and 4 assists for 6 points in 3 games, in which they took a 3-2 loss to Vancouver, a 7-0 victory over the Philadelphia Flyers, and Blue Jackets. They beat the Blue Jackets as well. So, speaking of that 7-0 victory over the Flyers, in that game, goaltender Ray Emery lambasted goaltender Braden Holtby of the Capitals. Braden Holtby did not want to fight. They kind of tussled around, but Ray Emery just laid a freaking beat down on him. He pounded on him and pounded on him and pounded on him. And the NHL did not suspend him. Not at all. They said there is no precedent to suspend him. Are you kidding me? Gary Bettman, you are the fracking commissioner. Act like a freaking commissioner and suspend this guy. You keep saying that you want safer rules, you want players to be safe, you want this and that and the other thing, and yet, when it comes right down to it, Emery just beat the living shit out of Holtby and got nothing. Not so much as a fine, no suspension, nothing. Ray Emery didn't even face a disciplinary hearing with Brendan Shanahan because there is no precedent. Are you kidding me? It's bullshit. Gary Bettman, as the commissioner, a shitty commissioner at that, should be stepping in and saying, we are going to set a precedent by suspending this guy because we're not going to tolerate this. This guy should not be playing hockey right now. And Braden Holtby could have suffered a concussion or God knows what else, and yet nothing was done by the league. Bullshit. Let's move on. That makes me angry. Okay, so let's look at the NHL standings for this week as they stand right now. In the Eastern Conference, in the Atlantic Division, your top 3 teams all have the same amount of points. They're all 20 points, and all have played different amount of games. Tampa Bay has played 14 games, Toronto has played 15 games, and Detroit has played 16 games, all with 20 points. They are the Atlantic Division leaders as it stands now. Excuse me. In the Metropolitan Division, they're led by the 22-point Pittsburgh Penguins, then followed by the New York Islanders at 15 points and Washington Capitals at 14. Your 2 wild cards currently are the Boston Bruins at 16 points and the Montreal Canadiens also at 16 points. Moving over to the West Division, which is the much better division, Western Conference, which is the much better conference. We look at the Central Division, being led currently by the 12-1 Colorado Avalanche with 24 points, followed closely by Chicago with 22 points, and then Minnesota rounding out the top 3 in that division with 19 points. Over in the other division, the Pacific Division, which is the toughest division right now, the Anaheim Ducks lead that one with 25 points. The San Jose Sharks have 23 points, while the Phoenix Coyotes are the third-place team in that division with 22 points. And your 2 wild cards currently are the Vancouver Canucks with 21 points and the St. Louis Blues with 18 points. Now, here's where it's very much different. As I said, Boston and Montreal are the 2 wild cards at 16 points in the Eastern Conference. Over in the Western Conference, the 2 wild cards have 21 points and 18 points respectively. Their next 2 guys are still ahead of the wild cards in the East. Los Angeles Kings also have 18 points, and the Nashville Predators have 16. In fact, looking at the overall standings, if we were just to put the entire NHL in order, the Eastern Conference has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the bottom 10 teams in the league. Only 2 of the bottom 10 teams are from the Western Conference, that being the lowly Edmonton Oilers with 8 points and the Winnipeg Jets with 14 points, and 14 points for the Jets would have them right in the thick of things in the Eastern Conference. Clearly, the Western Conference is destroying the East as it stands right now. So let's take a look at some statistics, and we're going to look at your points leader, and it's Crybaby Crosby sitting in the top with 23 points, followed by Steven Stamkos with 20, Henrik Sedin with 19, Alex Steen with 18, and Phil Kessel also with 18. Your goals leader from the St. Louis Blues, Alexander Steen with 12, followed closely by Steven Stamkos with 11, and Alexander Ovechkin and Jason Pominville each have 10, while Phil Kessel rounds out the top 5 with 9. Your assist leaders, Henrik Sedin of the Canucks has 16, followed closely by Crybaby Crosby with 15, Kyle Okposo has 13, while Joel Thornton also has 13, and Alexander Kopitar has 12. Your plus-minus leader is Dustin Penner of the Ducks with 13, and then we have 4 guys tied at 12, Chris Kunitz, Mark Vlasic, Rob Klinkhammer, and Joseph Braun. I think it's Joseph. I always forget to check to see. Justin Braun, all with plus 12. Let's move over to your goaltending leaders. Josh Harding of the Minnesota Wild has your best goals against average with 1.10, followed by Tuukka Rask of the Bruins with 1.73, Antti Niemi of the Sharks with 1.74, Simeon Varlamov of the Colorado Avalanche with 1.78, and Marc-Andre Fleury of the Penguins with 1.83. Your save percentage leaders, Josh Harding of the Wild leads that one as well with a .950 save percentage, followed by Varlamov with a .944, James Reimer of the Leafs with .942, Tuukka Rask of the Bruins with .940, and Robert Lerner of the Ottawa Senators with .938. Your wins leaders currently are Marc-Andre Fleury of the Penguins with 10, Antti Niemi of the Sharks with 9, also Ben Bishop of the Lightning with 9, and then Varlamov of the Avalanche and Crawford of the Chicago Blackhawks each with 8. Your shutout leaders currently, there's a lot of them with 2, and those goaltenders with 2 shutouts are Antti Niemi of the Sharks, Roberto Luongo of the Canucks, Josh Harding of the Wild, J.S. Jaguar or Jean-Sebastien Jaguar of the Avalanche with 2, and rounding out the 2s is Henrik Lundqvist with 2. Those are your shutout leaders. That is your statistics for the NHL. Let's move on to the NFL, or the No Fun League. Okay, a serious situation has been happening in Miami. There has been so much speculation. I don't want to get too involved with it because I don't know the details. Nobody knows the details. Through all the literature, through everything that's out there, there is nobody that knows all the details of what's going on with this situation. All we know is this. Jonathan Martin of the Miami Dolphins has left the organization due to what he's referred to as bullying and slander and racial slurs being directed at him by guard Richie Incognito. Now, Richard Incognito has recently been suspended indefinitely, and rumors are he will never play for the Miami Dolphins again. Now, Incognito has a history of being suspended. When he was in college, he was suspended twice. When he was with the, I believe the Saints, I'm not sure where he was before Miami. I know he was suspended there as well. There has been reports of a voicemail that Richard Incognito had left on Jonathan Martin's phone, and the transcript reads as such: "Hey, what's up, you half-expletive piece of expletive? I saw you on Twitter. You been training 10 weeks. I'll expletive in your expletive mouth. I'm going to slap your expletive mouth. I'm going to slap your real mother across the face." And then he laughs. And then expletive you're still a rookie. I'll kill you. Now, you can make up what the expletives means. I'm going to go like this. Hey, what's up, you baked, half-assed piece of shit. I saw you on Twitter. You've been training 10 weeks. I'll shit in your fucking mouth. I'm gonna slap your fucking mouth. I'm gonna slap your mother across her face. Fuck you. You're still a rookie. I'll kill you. That's pretty much what he said. At least according to the transcript that was provided to the NFL and the NFL Players Association. Martin, who is expected to be placed on the non-football injury list, notified the Dolphins that on Sunday about the alleged player misconduct. Incognito was suspended on Sunday and for conduct detrimental to the team, and the Dolphins are watching their season get washed away, but also are in the midst of a huge controversy. And I do want to apologize for all the swears. I don't normally swear that much, but I wanted to get across to you what's been going on. And maybe some of the expletives aren't even what I suggested they are. They could even be worse. There was apparently racial slurs, so some of those might even be, the N-word that I'm not even going to hint at other than that. There is just so much going on here, and once I find out more, I'll obviously put it in the podcast, but that is where I'm going to leave it at this time. So let's move on to some brighter news, or at least some different news, because it's not necessarily brighter. The Kansas City Chiefs. Let's move on to them. The Kansas City Chiefs beat my Buffalo Bills this week. I was disappointed. I was upset because, you know what? The Buffalo Bills were really in that game, and if it weren't for the fact that they were playing a third-string quarterback, I guarantee you the Chiefs would have lost this game if E.J. Manuel was playing. How do I know that? Because the Chiefs are a overhyped 9-0 team. Yes, they are perfect, and they're the only team that is. However, they have a last-place schedule and have not beat anybody of significance. I'm just going to pull it up here. I just want to kind of give you an example of what they've been doing their first 9 weeks, because they are entering a bye week, so they have no game in week 10, so obviously they are going to go into Denver undefeated. But there is no way that they should be undefeated at this time. I understand why they're undefeated, but I'm going to give you an indication of who they've played, who they've beat, and you can be the judge of whether they're a legitimate 9-0 team. So here's the list. They beat the what are they now? Jacksonville. The 0-8 Jacksonville Jaguars to start their season, okay? Then they beat the Cowboys in a close one, 17-6. Cowboys are an up and down team. They crushed the Eagles, they crushed the Giants, they beat the Titans, they beat the Raiders, they beat the Texans, they beat the Browns, and they beat the Bills. Out of all those teams, only maybe 2 of them might have had a chance. That being the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a high-powered offense, and possibly the Texans, who just had a bad game. And again, the Texans was a close one again, 17-16. Now, they did beat the Bills by 10, which was 23-13, and it seems like it was great. But they were not great. They were not great. They've beaten shit teams. They haven't played any good teams yet. The Buffalo Bills racked up 470 yards against the Chiefs, including 150 rushing yards by C.J. Spiller. I believe, Fred Jackson had over 70, plus he had 30 receiving. They are not a good team. Now, the Buffalo Bills definitely made mistakes. They've been making mistakes throughout the season, little ones, because they're playing with rookies, they're playing with third-string quarterbacks, they've been playing hurt, as I know a number of teams have. But when you play like that, and you still push the Chiefs to the brink, the Chiefs are not a 9-0 team, as they are. They are not a legitimate 9-0 team. I've said this about the Patriots. The Patriots are not a 7-2 team. At best, they should be 3-6, maybe 4-5 at the best. That's what they should be. Because this week, the Patriots actually showed up and played a game, crushing the Steelers 55-31. So that's huge. But Kansas City is not a 9-0 team. They have a very, very tough schedule coming up after their bye week. As I said, they have a bye week next week, and then they come back in week 11 where they will play the Denver Broncos. Then they will play another divisional game against the Chargers, which could go either way. They're going to lose that Broncos game, by the way. I'm predicting that right now. Then they play the Broncos again, which they will lose. Then they play two teams that they'll probably win against, in the Redskins and the Raiders. And then they get the Colts, where I believe the Colts will win, and then they play the Chargers again. Their schedule is shaping up to look at least like they've got 4 or 5 losses coming their way, and maybe more, depending on if teams can improve, like Washington's been getting better. Raiders have played them once already. They might be better the second time. So you take that. The Broncos are going to win that division. The Kansas City Chiefs will end up either the 5th or 6th seed. They'll have to play a wild card game. No way are the Chiefs the best in the AFC. Not even close. I don't care what the record says. They're not even close. Okay, let's move on to the injury roundup. Again, we've seen some more injuries this week. Now, the first one we got is in the win over the Baltimore Ravens. Cleveland coach Rob Szynski announced Monday that Jason Campbell suffered bruised ribs. The quarterback isn't expected to miss time, which is probably good because he looked good against the Ravens. In fact, they beat them when I thought they would lose, and Jason Campbell proved for one game at least that he can still play this game of football. The Buffalo Bills have some good news on the injury front. They've announced that rookie quarterback E.J. Manuel has been fully cleared to return after spraining his LCL in Week 5 against the aforementioned Browns. Minnesota Vikings tight end Kyle Rudolph fractured his foot in the loss to the Cowboys, and it looks like he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Denver Broncos tight end Julius Thomas will not practice on Monday, or did not practice on Monday, after he sustained a mild ankle sprain in Week 8. However, it's been not unusual to have players rest in the early practice week. It's going to be how he practices on Wednesday, and since I'm not recording on Wednesday, I don't know how that's going to go. Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Roddy White did not play Sunday, but had a pregame workout and is going to practice this week. It is possible he will play against the Seahawks. If I were the Falcons, I'd hold him out against the Seahawks because he will get beat up and possibly hurt even more. As far as Seattle goes, Percy Harvin is not counted on to be making his season debut against the Falcons. It would be illogical to move him into this matchup. It looks more like he will make his logical and possibly poetic return in Week 11, where he will play his former team, the Vikings. Raiders quarterback Terrell Pryor suffered a sprained knee in the blowout loss to the Eagles and is currently listed as day-to-day. The Raiders appear more concerned with the status of Darren McFadden, who re-injured his hamstring. McFadden already has exited 2 games and missed 1 with this recurring injury. Browns wide receiver Greg Little sustained a minor shoulder sprain against the Ravens, but says it isn't serious, and he looks like he will be practicing on Tuesday. St. Louis tight end Lance Kendricks fractured his finger when he landed in the end zone during the 28-21 loss to the Titans. Rams coach Jeff Fisher announced that on Monday. And Jets wide receiver Jeremy Curley has dislocated his elbow and will miss at least a few weeks. To add to that, on the Monday night game, quarterback Aaron Rodgers fractured his collarbone and will miss some times. Aaron Rodgers himself has listed it as a significant injury. Also, with the performance of Nick Foles this past week, throwing 7 touchdowns, don't expect that every week, people, especially you fantasy people who might jump on the Nick Foles bandwagon. This is an aberration as opposed to consistency. Chip Kelly has said that Nick Foles will take the first string snaps in practice, but Michael Vick will continue to nurse his hamstring. I personally think Vick has not, unless something happens to Foles, Vick has played his last game as an Eagle. possibly his last game in the NFL. Let's look at the full standings as it stands right now. In the AFC East, we have the Patriots at 7-2, the Jets at 5-4, the Dolphins at 4-4, and the Bills followed up at 3-6. In the AFC North, the Bengals lead that division with a 6-3 record, while they're followed by the Browns at 4-5, the Ravens at 3-5, and the lowly Pittsburgh Steelers, who are crushed by New England, 2-6. Indianapolis Colts lead the AFC South with a 6-2 record, followed by the Tennessee Titans at 4-4, the Houston Texans at 2-6, and the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars at 0-8, giving up 178 more points than they've scored so far this season. Over in the AFC West, one of the toughest divisions this year, Kansas City Chiefs are 9-0. As I said before, though, I do not expect that to continue, and this is an aberration, and they are not a 9-0 team. They're just lucky. Denver Broncos are 7-1. They are the real deal, and they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. San Diego Chargers are 4-4, and the Oakland Raiders round out the division at 3-5. Over in the NFC East, one of the closest divisions where even the last place team could win the division, depending on how things go from here on out, have the Dallas Cowboys on top, currently at 5-4, followed closely by the Eagles at 4-5, and then the Washington Redskins at 3-5, and the New York Giants at 2-6. Excuse me. Again, I apologize. Another tight and close division is the NFC North, where 3 of the 4 teams are 5-3. The Detroit Lions, the Chicago Bears, and the Green Bay Packers. Currently, the Detroit Lions hold the number 1 spot due to a conference record of 4-2. The NFC South has the New Orleans... Oh, sorry, there is one more team in that division. That's the Minnesota Vikings at 1-7. That's in the NFC North. Now on to the NFC South, currently led by the 6-2 New Orleans Saints, the rising tide of the Carolina Panthers at 5-3, Atlanta Falcons lowly sitting at 2-6, and then another lowly team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 0-8. In the NFC West, it's the Seattle Seahawks at 8-1, followed by the San Francisco 49ers at 6-2, then the Arizona Cardinals at 4-4, with the St. Louis Rams rounding it out at 3-6. Let's take a look at some statistics. Your top 5 passers. Peyton Manning is at 2,919 passing yards, followed by Drew Brees at 2,672 passing yards. Matt Stafford is third with 2,617 passing yards. Andy Dalton has 2,587 passing yards, and rounding out the top 5, Tony Romo with 2,553 passing yards. Your touchdown leaders is still Peyton Manning, even after the bye week, at 29 touchdowns, followed by Drew Brees with 21. Tony Romo has 20, Phillip Rivers 17, and then we have Matt Stafford and Andy Dalton each with 16. Moving over to the rushing side of things, the rushing yards leader is LaShawn McCoy, Shady McCoy, with 777 rushing yards. Marshawn Lynch follows that up with 726 rushing yards. Closely behind him is Jamal Charles with 725 rushing yards. Adrian Peterson with 711, and then Alfred Morris rounds out the top 5 with 686. Your rushing touchdown leaders are Noshawn Moreno of the Denver Broncos with 8, Adrian Peterson, Matt Forte, and Frank Gore all have 7, while the top 5 is rounded out by 4 guys at 6 rushing touchdowns, that being Marshawn Lynch, Fred Jackson, Stephen Ridley, and Jamal Charles. Your receiving yards leaders are A.J. Green with 862 reception yards, Deshaun Jackson with 823, Calvin Johnson, Megatron, 821, Andre Johnson with 813, and Jimmy Graham, tight end, by the way, with 746 reception yards. Moving on to touchdown leaders, the aforementioned Jimmy Graham, tight end, by the way, 10 receptive touchdowns. Wes Welker has 9. Des Bryant has 8, as does Julius Thomas, another tight end. And rounding out the top 5 is Eddie Royal with 7. Oh, sorry, I am wrong. There is more, because there's more that have 7. Tight end Vernon Davis also has 7. Calvin Johnson has 7. Jordy Nelson has 7. As does Marvin Jones of the Bengals have 7. So there's quite a few with 7 reception touchdowns. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Your tackles leaders are Carlos Dansby with 69, Paul Posluszny and Sean Lee each with 63, and then rounding out the top 5 is Vontaze Burfict and Earl Thomas each with 61. Your current sack leaders are Robert Mathis with 11.5, followed very closely by Buffalo Bills' Mario Williams with 11, and also Justin Houston has 11. Rounding out the top 5, Robert Quinn has 10, Terrell Suggs has 9, and Tamba Hali also has 9. Your interception leaders currently are, all with 4, a whole bunch of them. Let's see if I can run down the list. Aqib Talib of the Patriots, Kiko Alonso of the Bills, Alteron Werner of the Titans, Sean Lee of the Cowboys, Dimitri Patterson of the Dolphins, DeAndre Levy of the Lions, Richard Sherman of the Seahawks, and Earl Thomas, also of the Seahawks, all with 4 interceptions. That is your statistics for football. Alright, we have some breaking news. I was just about to wrap up the show, but before I do, I have some breaking news for you. Earlier in the NFL segment, I reported about the whole situation with Richie Incognito and Martin of the Miami Dolphins, Jonathan Martin. How much of a bullying situation, how much that is a really nasty situation. Well, just as I was about to wrap things up and close things off, something was brought to my attention by a friend of mine on Facebook. This friend's name is Adam. I just want to give him credit where credit is due. He brought this to my attention. It happened, it was reported recently, yesterday actually, and basically it was an article and a fluff piece, if you will, done by a news station in Michigan. However, this is a very touching situation, and I encourage everyone to watch the video that I'm going to attach below. But here is the rundown of what happened. At Olivet Middle School in Olivet, Michigan, I might be pronouncing that wrong, sorry, Olivet, if I am, the football team, the Olivet Eagles, decided to play a little trick on their coaches. They went behind their coach's back to do something that turned out to be absolutely spectacular. They decided to run 2 different plays. The first play was they were going to run a play and intentionally not score. The football team had been planning this for weeks so they could set up a very special moment for a very special boy. This special boy's name is Keith Orr. He is a special needs child who has learning disabilities and other disabilities, but he is on the football team, and his buddies on the football team decided to give him the chance to run for a touchdown. They ran this play where Sheridan Hedrick, a player on the team, could have easily scored a touchdown, and when you watch the video, you'll see that he could have easily scored the touchdown. Instead, he took a knee on the 1-yard line. The crowd actually didn't like it. It's because of what happened next. The ball on the next play was hiked and immediately handed to Keith Orr, who was surrounded by his teammates, and they protected him from the oncoming defense as Keith was able to walk in and score without getting touched. The boys did so much for this little boy. It goes to show you that there's so much still good in this world. I mean, these kids showed a sense of humility and understanding of the game that NFL pros wish they could have. And I'm sorry, I'm a little touched by it. It was just such a fantastic piece. Watch the video below. Please watch it. This is what life and football and sports and everything is supposed to be about. It's about teamwork, and it's about coming together And this is just fantastic. And I wasn't going to put it in. I was going to save it till next week until I watched the video. And then I said, I can't wait. I can't wait. It's got to go in. It's got to be on this week's podcast. With everything that's going on in the pros, to see this, it's just absolutely impressive. Yeah, so please watch it. And I hope people are still listening at this point. I know this is so late in the podcast, but please watch it. It was fantastic and such a feel-good story. And I thank you for listening to my breaking news and listening to the podcast every week. Thank you. That is it for this week's edition of Warlock Wednesdays. I hope you enjoyed the show. I know this week was a little longer and also a little bit choppier, mostly due to my illness, or my at least not feeling good. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, you can come back every week to listen to Warlock Wednesdays. We have a whole slate of shows here on the Ehnother Podcast Network. On Mondays, we have Ehnother Podcast with James and OJ. Real Music is on Tuesdays with OJ and James. I'm here on Wednesdays hosting the Warlock Hour. And then on Thursdays, you can listen to myself, Adam, and Tyler make our amateur analysis and picks for the NFL season as we do NFL Pick'em on Thursdays. You can check us out on Ehnotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. You can find us on iTunes, also on Stitcher.com. Like us on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. That's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm out. Thanks for listening to Ehnother Podcast from Ehnotherpodcast.com. Don't forget to go on iTunes and or download right from Ehnotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Ehnother Podcast. Be sure to check back for tomorrow's show only on Ehnother Podcast, your Canadian podcast network. Ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor.